Thank you.
Oh, now they tell us.
As soon as it gets to the attorney.
No,
Okay, Kathy Sykes, I have Allegro Print and Imaging and Image 360 Signs in Fayetteville. I've been a certified partner with the association for about 10 years. And we do any type of visual communication needs, whether it's a business card, a sweatshirt, a pen, or a brochure. Should I have my little brochure up here? Kathy Sykes.
Let's see. My name's David Hayden. I'm an attorney with a law firm downtown called Smith Anderson. And I do government contracting. I'm a retired Army colonel, used to be the senior lawyer at Fort Bragg in my former life, but I've been here for about 15 years practicing law in one capacity or another, and I've been very involved in this organization and its predecessor called the North Carolina Defense Business Association. Now we're in the Defense Alliance of North Carolina and having bigger and better opportunities for us, and glad to be here.
I'm Ed Harshberger. I'm with Readiness Cybersecurity and Consulting. We help protect businesses from cyber crimes, and we also help with compliance. So if those businesses, small to medium-sized businesses that fall under some regulatory requirement, the technical aspects of that requirement plus assessments and those types of things we're able to help with. We also help with training. So we have an employee training and end user training and executive training. So we help those businesses with overcome the anxiousness of dealing with threats to their business via outside entities and those types of things. So again, my name is Ed Harshberger, Cybersecurity.
And I'm Kim Harshberger with Readiness Cybersecurity Software.
Any relation?
We just met.
What a coincidence.
I'm Joel Gouge with the North Carolina Procurement Technical Assistance Center. We work with small and mid-sized businesses in North Carolina that government contracting, whether it's federal, state, and local, assist with defense contracting as well. We hold seminars across the state. We have opportunities, webinars, those kind of things that we present, on areas that are beneficial to our clients.
I'm Buddy Hall. I'm with Wolf Trail Engineering. Our core services are building envelope consulting, structural engineering, civil engineering, and project management.
Excellent. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm sorry that I didn't get to meet you earlier. I was dealing with some technical challenges. That's not my forte.
Chris Sherrico, Guardian Tax Solutions. I resolve tax problems for individuals and businesses across the country. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here.
And I'm Frank Farrar with All American Relocation. We move residences, we move businesses, no matter how far, no matter how close, no matter how big, no matter how small. We can move whatever you need moved.
Mm-hmm. And Frank wears many hats as it relates to the Alliance. Not only is he a business partner and an invested member and has been for years, but he chairs this committee for us and for you all. And then he is one of our directors on the Management Council now for the Alliance. So thank you for all your contributions, your time and effort. So,
Thank you.
and so I am Tammy Everett, and good afternoon. I said good morning to someone when I think it was Kim when I walked in. And believe me, it's been a full day.
That's because you still have a long day ahead of you, my dear.
I think you're right, Frank. Frank knows me too well. So, so yes, it is officially good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. So Tammy Everett, Senior Director for the Defense Alliance in North Carolina, and we've got, I think business cards have went around. Let me get mine going. So pass those if you haven't already. We'll go. You got yours, Frank, and I will help you pass. This is.
Tammy, we're happy to be here.
Yeah, I think I've handed them to everybody.
I'm sorry?
I think I've passed them to everybody.
Yes, and I was just sharing with someone when I was introducing him that you guys are officially our newest member, and so thank you for that. And you're right, this is officially your first member after joining the Alliance, and we so appreciate it. And thank you. Yes, keep them coming. So as we're passing these business cards along, sorry about that, Frank, do you want me to, you got your agenda in front of you. You want to do the introduction of Craig, and we'll just turn it right on over
Yes.
to him? Okay, perfect. I'll let you get started on that.
So as you see up on the screen, Craig Petronella, Craig is a best-selling author. If you read the little bio that we put on there, he's MIT certified professional. He's had 35 or over 30 years experience in health IT, compliance consulting. Craig is the CEO of Petronella Technology Group. It's an internationally trusted IT cybersecurity group, and he specializes in helping businesses with security and compliances on a number of different levels and protocols, etc. So with that, I'm going to let you take over, Craig, and do your stuff.
Exactly. You've got about 20 to 30 minutes, so take it away. The floor is yours, sir, and thank you for being with us virtual, since I understand you are not feeling your best today. So thank you for doing that. We're glad that you're still a part of this forum.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it very much. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So I'll just carry on here. So the cybersecurity maturity model, the CMMC, I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. I'm sure you've heard of it. It came out version 1 on the 31st of January. I talk about the cyber espionage costs $600 billion annually. China's counterfeit Air Force. Basically, my opinion is the CMMC is a good thing. You might have mixed thoughts on it, but the self-attestation of NIST 800-171 is just not working. And the DoD has recognized that, and that is really why the CMMC came about and requires accredited third-party audits to help with this here, to hopefully reverse some of these statistics that are awful to read. So why NIST and DFARS? Like I said, it was all based on great frameworks. I mean, NIST.gov, I don't know if anybody's ever been out there, but they put out some really good materials, but they're very complicated, complex, and hard to follow without professional consulting. And really the bottom line is the self-attestation doesn't work. Companies really don't know what they don't know. You might have heard about Katie Arrington, the Secretary of Defense for Acquisition, Special Assistant to the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Acquisition. She's put out some great podcasts that I can send you all links to that have some great information I've distilled here. But if you wanted more depth and context, she's got some really good materials out there. And she's a big advocate and proponent about the CMMC and really also is a big believer in how it will really change things for the better for everyone. So I think there's going to be a lot of pains going through it initially. It's going to take some time. There are some already I'm seeing companies that are sprouting saying that they can get you CMMC level 3 for $60,000 and crazy numbers like that. And it's just all false. And there's a lot of scammers that are already starting to come to surface. So it's kind of a scary world at the moment in that regard. The reality of the situation is that that's just not true. It's too new. There haven't even been released guidelines from the Department of Defense on the audit process. Nobody knows what that is going to look like as far as time and money and final costs. So this is all real new at the moment. But the best thing that your companies can do if you are subject to CMMC is prepare, and those things that you should be preparing on are with your security policies, procedures, and your security controls and the mapping. So regardless of the final deliverables of the CMMC mandates in the audit process, those are things that can be worked on now. And if you don't know where to start with that, you can certainly have a consultant help you. And that's one of the things that we specialize in. So why now? Really, the bottom line is that there are so many breaches of controlled unclassified information, or what's called CUI, and that really there just needs to be a tightening of the grip of that. So now what's going to happen is the RFIs and RFPs are going to include a CMMC requirement in the contract. They're going to have certain levels, 1 through 5, and you'll need to have that level to bid on the contract. They're speculating that it could be till 2025, 2026, or even later for all of this to really come to fruition. However, there has been word on the street about how contracts are already going to start including the CMMC levels in the near future, even though it's going to take a process to get it all finalized. So here I talk about happening with the 5G, protecting unsecured networks from outside threats, how it's almost impossible, quantum computing, how it's easy to crack basic encryption levels. Oh, by the way, the latest stat I was reading when I was putting this together on password length, a lot of people ask about that particular security control. 22 characters is the minimum recommended length now due to how powerful computers are at cracking password strength. So that's a quick tip for you. The goal of the CMMC is to create a unified global standard. And I do think that this is a good thing. I think that this will bleed into other areas, into healthcare, potentially with HIPAA being revamped and maybe adopt a similar model to the CMMC. So I think that overall it will be a good thing. The same for ISO 27001 and SOC 2 Type 2. I think those will be adapted as well. And data centers will also need to be CMMC audited.
Hey, Craig, can you share your screen full?
Oh,
Where
sure.
yeah, if you could, I think it will come.
If you go up to the top left, you'll see it say slideshow, I think.
Is that better?
Hi, talking. Oh, it's better. Okay.
All right. So eventually there'll be no longer the separate NIST 800-171 and DFARS requirements. They're going to be combined into these different levels. There's 5 different maturity levels. They build on each other from basic cyber hygiene to advanced. For a given CMMC level, the associated controls and processes when implemented will reduce your risk. So the contractors and the subcontractors must be CMMC certified before they'll be granted the contract. So basically the folks that are not paying attention to the CMMC will effectively fall off of the supply chain and not be able to bid on new contracts. So at the moment, it's really a competitive edge, a competitive advantage to get CMMC, the level that's best for your business.
Can I ask you a question, Craig?
Sure.
On that last slide, last bullet. If we need to be compliant by the time audits begin, they're not, when do they plan to start doing the audits?
They haven't come out with that information yet. Nobody knows.
Wow.
Craig, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is that, we read somewhere, and I can't quote it, but they were looking at, I don't know if there was a review or if it's actually where they were gonna start looking at some of the audits in July 1st. Does the July 1st date mean anything to you? I don't know.
As far as when audits may start?
Well, I guess when they'll start reviewing where they are with some of the new vendors that are going to be doing submissions.
Yeah, you know, this stuff is changing so rapidly. I think what's going to happen is they're trying to get some use cases or test cases through and learn from it is really what's going to happen. I don't know the exact time frames because they changed them. But I do not think that the audit is going to happen in July. I think that's way too soon.
Sure, yeah. Okay, cool, thanks.
But I do think that even though there's so many unknowns in regards to what does an audit look like, what's the timeline, what is the auditor going to do, some people have said that the audits must be done on site, so we don't know if on site is a mandate or if it can be done virtually. I'm thinking it's going to be on site, but again, nobody knows for sure because they're releasing such limited information on it. However, having said that, and even though we don't have that information now in March, there's still so much work to be done across policy, procedures, and security controls that regardless of when they come out with the quote unquote audit mandate, whether that's July, which I think is way too soon, but even if it's by December, which I still think would be very aggressive, you still need to do all this other stuff. And it's going to take companies years just to do all the other stuff. So
Right.
I think that there's, and again, I speculate when I say this, but I think that there will be leniency, and it will be only a good thing to show evidence and proof of doing these things now, and working through the process. And that's pretty much what I know at the moment. Does that help?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Sure. So like I was saying, with security controls and policies and procedures, the benefits increase security. Right now, if you do the CMMC and you start what I call the readiness process, the writing of the policies, the procedures, the mapping to security controls, doing the security risk assessments, the pen test, the gap analysis, figuring out what is your score now, what's the work to be done, figuring out who's going to do that work. Now's the time to start getting all that in order so that you can best prepare. Obviously, even though the final details of actually what will happen in the audit are unknown at this time, by increasing your security controls, it's only going to help make you less of a mark or low-hanging fruit to a hacker. So it's only going to help increase your stature. Right now, the ones that are doing what I call readiness consulting and preparing for all of this, I feel like they do have a competitive advantage. I think most businesses, especially the ones that we work with, are looking to CMMC level 3 or higher. That's another point that there have been some questions around, where there's some concerns around if the Department of Defense will accurately put on the contract, mandate the level. Maybe they might request too high of a level and a small business won't be able to bid on it. So there's some concerns around that. So there's going to be a lot to learn, I think, in the future on it. But I think that what we have at the moment is still for the better compared to the self-attestation process. So my company offers secure data hosting, and the data center that we are partnered with it will be getting the CMMC when the details are finalized. The same for my company. We'll go through the CMMC audit as well, and we've got patented security layers that we can leverage for the security controls. So our data center that we're partnered with at the moment, we've got several partnerships, but the one that we have equipment at that my company owns is located in Raleigh and Briar Creek. So we could actually show and do a tour of the facility if we have hosting that we're doing for a client. So these are the standards here that most data centers are adhering to with HIPAA, high-tech, GLBA, PCI, FACTA, Sarbanes-Oxley, FERPA. I think that these various regs are gonna really get simmered down as the CMMC becomes more and more mature and finalized. Data center environment is very secure from a physical aspect, monitoring, security guards, biometrics, but also from a redundant critical systems aspect where there's redundant power, redundant cooling, just a great environment for hosting. One of the things that we've been doing in the healthcare or the HIPAA space, as well as GLBA and SOC space, is compliant hosting that we call virtual workspaces or secure workspaces. So we have all of the controls and the settings all mapped to the various regs already done. So it really accelerates the process for compliance and for audits. And you can rent the controls whichever ones that you need that are mandated by the regs that you're subject to. And it's all wrapped up in a monthly fee. Really makes it a lot easier than buying really expensive equipment. So our pricing is very competitive in the industry. We always strive to get the best pricing for our clients. Fair market value is always assessed at least monthly to make sure that we give and over deliver on value. So one of the things that we find with competition is that they give you a lot of great tools, but there's no guarantees. They don't stand behind the deliverability of the service, and that's one of our differentiators. Patented security, I'll talk about that. We have currently a 22-layer patented stack at the moment where we are continuously vetting and testing various technologies that are coming out. There's a lot of technologies that are just all smoke and mirrors, to be honest with you. They're all marketing, and then when they don't deliver at the end. So we that's a big part of what we do at the data centers. We're always vetting and testing. One of the common threats that affect most victims of a breach is I've spoken about this before. It's called keylogger malware, where it gets past all of your defenses for security controls in regards to antivirus and firewalls and things like that, and the payload gets dropped onto your endpoint, and then all of your keystrokes are captured and exfiltrated out. And unless you have keystroke encryption, that's the only defense against that mechanism. And then you can layer in different things like an onion to keep your security as hardened as possible. You never want to rely on one technology. So there's always a layering approach that's recommended. Another patented company that we vetted is called the audits hard disk firewall. This technology is actually was tested by Lockheed Martin. And they wrote a 100-page paper on it, and it was very, very good. The only negative I can say about it is it's very expensive, but it does work, and it does work very, very well. And there are some very large 4 mega banks that are using it in the world. The other component is that they, as a company, they don't want, which for good reason, they don't want to release who's using their product so that they can kind of keep things tight in regards to hackers not knowing what they're up against. But there's no way to drop with that technology layer. There's no way to drop a particular type of payload to the disk on an endpoint. So it's pretty cool stuff. One of the things that I like about that software too is that it'll stop ransomware or even zero-day threats without a patch. So even if there's a gaping hole in Microsoft's OS for Windows 7, which is recently end-of-lifed, for example, in the medical setting, oftentimes they have to run Windows 7 or Windows 8 or an outdated operating system because it's connected to an expensive piece of medical equipment. So that's why they're sitting ducks and often at very, very high risk of ransomware or other types of malware breaches. So this type of technology is a good patented security layer that can help with that running of an old operating system that may not have patches available anymore, but still needs to be used in production to mitigate risk. This is just more about our company, our certifications we have on our website. Just a lot of certifications, a lot of reviews. Our mission and value is to over deliver. We try to, like I said, give the best that we can at the best price possible, and just really be there for the little guys that can't afford the really expensive security that's available. And we're the accelerator where we help bring this, distill it down, make it easier for small to medium sized and even enterprise customers, and just go through the track record that we've been through for almost 18 years now, and really be that accelerator and get fast forward through this process for you guys. Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
This is David. I've heard there's a lot of folks out there that are trying to, I know you and I know you're trying, but there are other vendors out there that are pushing people to try and get started early and get qualified. And we don't even know clearly what they're going to expect at this point, right, on these audits? There's been a lot of discussion on that, so I think you've got to be very careful about who, if anybody, you bring in to get you in compliance if you don't want to do it yourself. Would you say that's a fair thing to say? And if so, what should people look for?
Yeah, no, that's a great question and a great point that you bring up. So a lot of companies that I found are, like I said earlier, they're promising that they'll get you or your company to a certain level of CMMC, or they'll do the audit for X dollars. I've heard 60,000 for level 3 CMMC. I've heard pricing all over the map, but the reality of the situation, the honesty behind it, it's not honest. Nobody knows how long it's going to take. It's impossible to fix rate at this point when the DoD hasn't even released the audit process on what they're going to audit. Is it going to be on site? How long is it going to take? So the best approach that I've come up with is what I call a readiness consulting approach, and just do a retainer-based approach and start chipping away at the policies, the procedures, the gap analysis, all the things that we know they're going to ask for, and that to help prepare folks to go through that now. Those are things that can be done now, but even at that level, it's best to do it at a retainer level. So if you're looking and you're shopping around and people are dangling a carrot of X dollars for a certain level of CMMC, or it's just impossible at this moment when there's just the water's too muddy at the moment.
I think that's some good, fair, sound advice for everyone.
Have you heard about the DCAA audit checklist? Have they even created one yet?
I have not seen that. Now, keep in mind that the CMMC is heavily based on NIST, so there's tons of checklists already out there on NIST that you can follow. There's the NC State put out a nice risk assessment Excel sheet that I forget they presented a few weeks ago that can, and you can use those tools that are free to start the readiness phase of this journey. So all the security controls, the policies, procedures, all of what's outlined there on that NIST Excel sheet, that's all going to apply to this.
Craig, with permission from the folks in the room, if I gave you the email addresses to those that attended today, is any of this proprietary? Can you share this as a electronic
Oh, sure.
email?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
And I
That'd be
also
great.
have, if you guys want, I have some past CMMC work that I've done that I can send to you guys too, as far as outlines and more information about it. Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Good
So,
thinking.
yeah, so, because I know that this is a lot of information, a little bit difficult to grab
It
all the
is.
information. Brains.
You know, it's so complicated, and I try hard to distill it, but it's still complicated in the end. I mean, I only went through 15 slides, but it's still it's confusing, it's complicated, it raises a lot of questions, and I'm always creating new materials to try to help people understand that even like even now, I mean, there's still so much work that can be done now to prepare and become ready. And it's going to take a long time. It's going to be months, if not years, before, depending on what I call your cyber maturity level and where you're scoring. And, you know, if you have nothing in place versus if you have some things in place, just really identifying the work to be done, the jobs to be done, and then the capabilities. If your firm is small, you might not have the capability or the bandwidth to work or create these policies and map the appropriate security controls. So you might want to hire outside consultants to help you. Just be careful when you're shopping around and make sure that you're not going to get into a contract with somebody that is going to promise something that isn't finalized yet.
So in the future, in 2020, every contractor and subcontractor is going to have CMMC certification, and whether it's level 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, in order to do work with the federal
That's
government.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. In order to get a new contract, you're going to have the level that's denoted on the contract.
Anything existing, pre-existing is grandfathered. Any new contracts would be impacted by this certification.
But now yeah, that's a good point though. But keep in mind, like the existing contracts, a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of NIST self-attestation that goes along with the acceptance of that. And that's also the part that the government realized too. So a lot of people were taking contracts and accepting contracts, but they didn't really have all the stuff that was outlined on the NIST 800-171.
Gotcha. See, there's a lot of components, a lot of moving parts to this.
Yeah, there's what's that?
I was gonna say, when it comes to renewal time for certain contracts and things like that, even though they've done the self-attestations, they're gonna still have to comply with this rule to continue, with an
Yes.
approved contract.
Yep, that's right. And you know, this is complicated. There's a total of 110 security controls and 26 policies. I mean, it's a lot for a small business.
Yeah.
So is the idea behind the certification that it would be renewed annually?
That's right. That's what we're thinking at the moment. But yes.
Interesting. Well, Craig, thank you. You're just under 30 minutes, so I want to open it up to more questions, and then if not, then we will move on. Yeah, we will move over to our second speaker. So let me open up the floor again and see if anybody has any questions. And of course, Craig, you are welcome to stay on so you can have audio to our second presenter. But I also know you took one for the team today and you're not feeling well. So I will advise you to go back to bed, but that's completely up to you.
Have a hot party first.
Thank
Tea
you.
with some bourbon.
I like Frank's advice. That's right. Have a hot toddy and take care of yourself. And again, thank you. And let me open up the floor real quick for additional questions, see if anybody has anything for you. All good? All right. Well, again, you got, yeah,
so
go. No.
What, so this is all new to me. So what would be, and I hear that the guidelines haven't been released yet, but what would be your best guess as to a level 1 certification contract? What would be a type of project that would be a level 1, and what would it take to meet level 1?
So level 1 is probably going to be rather low, in my opinion. I think at most contracts that are going to require CMMC are going to be a 3 or higher, but a level 1 is just basic, the most basic of the CMMC. So it's going to be, you have some policies and procedures in place, and you have some of the controls. You know, you might have 20 or 30 of the 110 total. So you have some level of awareness and maturity with this. But that's going to be bare bones, bare minimum on all of it.
Good question.
I've got a question. This is way outside my wheelhouse, but I do have some clients that they wouldn't have the initial contract, they'd be more of a subcontractor. Do they fall under those guidelines as well?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, all subcontractors fall under the guidelines as well. So the primes and the subs.
Impacting everyone that does business with the government.
Thank you.
Great question, though. Great question, because I know you get, as you representing your clients, you're going to get a lot of these questions. So stay in touch. Yeah, definitely stay in touch with resources like this.
Scott, I'll reach out to you. I do have a lot of questions later.
Craig.
Sure. Well, yeah, just pass Tammy your email, and I'll send over the previous presentation and materials I have. I have several links I can send to you that'll help.
Okay, thank you. Maybe
You're
I need the hot dog, and I'm not sick.
And Craig, this is Kathy at Allegra. I'm already getting your emails. A lot of what you talk about is out of my wheelhouse or way over my head. But for the people in the room, please get to his email because he will send tons of information your way. But thank you for those.
Thank you. Absolutely. My pleasure.
Very good. All right. Well, we'll let you go. Again, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you. Really appreciate you being a part of the Alliance, and we continue to work with folks like Craig to be more knowledgeable of this, and we're really hoping to be kind of the tiger team of this. As we get resources, we want to make sure that we're funneling that and getting that to you guys. So just bear with us as we are all learning and going through this. It's constantly changing, as you hear. And so, Craig, thanks again.
Thanks, Craig.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
All right,
You
you do
too.
the same.
Take care.